Hello my friends, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and today I want to talk to you about failure, about video games that thought themselves to be the biggest cock of the walk but ended up shriveling under the spotlights of criticism, and about the times when just being a large lad with a wad of cash couldn't save these titles from belly flopping hard. I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video games too big to fail that did anyway. Number 10. Mass Effect Andromeda. When Andromeda was announced, people quite literally moistened themselves at the thought of another incredible intergalactic space opera title as, despite the mixed reaction on the ending, the Mass Effect trilogy had grown to be one of the best received and biggest selling of all time. And when Andromeda's first screens came out, it actually looked brilliant. Then my face got tired. EA rather foolishly allowed players to try the game a week early on EA/Origin Access, when it immediately became clear that the new dev team BioWare Montreal was in way over their heads. Players reported embarrassingly bad character animations right out of the gate, not to mention a wealth of bugs and a depressingly repetitive core gameplay loop. Stories emerged of the issues in development and the difficulties of moving everything to the Frostbite 3 engine, but the damage had been done. With videos detailing all of its flaws hitting millions of views and EA being cagey with releasing sales figures for the game, it's been widely accepted by the industry that Andromeda likely underperformed significantly compared to previous entries in the series, making a minor profit at best. Number 9. E.T. the Extraterrestrial. A video game based around a colossal hit movie, what could go wrong? Well, as much as video game movies have got a sour reputation nowadays, back in 1982 there wasn't even a lingering doubt that E.T. for the Atari 2600 would be anything less than a stonking hit. With Spielberg's property and a Christmas release date, this was almost a foolproof plan. But more fool us, right? Designer Howard Scott Warshaw was given just 5 weeks to build the game from scratch to meet a brutal production deadline. 5 weeks. No wonder it was released with about as much depth as a tea coaster. Actually, as a tea coaster, it would have been much more useful as this game was hot garbage and actually became it too thanks to the now infamous burial site of all these unsold cartridges. According to reports, the blunder caused Atari $536 million in losses in 1983 and $1.3 billion loss in stock market valuation, with this game becoming the catalyst, or one of the biggest ones, for the infamous video game crash of 1983 to 85, where the industry lost 97% of its value. Oof. Number 8. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Now, no word of a lie, I was genuinely gutted when Infinite came out and sucked as much as it did, because I'm a huge fan of the franchise all the way back to the heady days of my youth. But the issues with Infinite were, well, nearly infinite themselves, as the game had a lackluster roster with all of the X-Men and Fantastic Four stripped out, a low-budget look, and a gem system that seemed way more gimmicky than game-changing. The devs told us that this would be another mainstay on the pro gaming circuit, but with middling reviews, fans simply just voted with their wallets, resulting in Infinite selling just half of Capcom's initial projections. The publisher itself deemed the commercial performance weak, and then cut support of the title entirely. There were even rumors that both companies are going to be making a new game and call it Marvel vs. Capcom 4, completely writing Infinite out of existence. Oof, medium oof. Number 7. Superman 64. On paper, Superman 64 had so much going for it. It was the first Superman game for the N64 for a start, and was the first ever 3D Superman game, period. The Man of Steel on Nintendo's new hardware, surely it was going to be a smash hit. Well, add an S to the front of hit and you'll be closer to the mark. From incredible micromanaging from the parent companies of DC and Warner Brothers to a 6-month delay in production, this game was like terminal illness on a cartridge. It ruined any hopes for Superman on the 64 and also caused developer Titus Interactive to eventually go out of business, with other companies not keen to work with them after this debacle, which is entirely unfair seeing as only 10% of their ideas made it into the game thanks to DC and Warner Brothers being overprotective with the license. Number 6. DAIKATANA. John Romero's about to make you his bitch. I mean, what a marketing campaign, right? For all the wrong reasons. Anyone knew about DAIKATANA in the late 1990s. And with this amount of intrigue and the success of Doom behind him, surely things were going to go well for DAIKATANA, right? Oh dear, what do we have here? Well, first off, the game was 2.5 years late to the party, missing its 1997 Christmas release. Then the game switched engines mid-production, and as more and more unremarkable screens came out featuring the game, eventually public opinion soured. Consequently, the game was a huge flop at retail, resulting in the closure of developer Ion Storm's lavish Dallas office. Romero's career never really fully recovered, and today DAIKATANA remains a fascinating test case for how dangerous personality-driven games development can truly be. Roblox medium oof slowed slightly down. Number 5. PAC-MAN Atari 2600. Everybody knows Pac-Man, and just about everybody loves Pac-Man, even when he got all gangly on that one hideous box art. Ugh, what's going on there? Gross, get it out of my face. So how could you not love the idea of him jumping from the arcade to the home console in 1982? Surely it is that simple. Oh no! Programmer Todd Fry was given no arcade specs to make porting the game to a home console easier, and had to recreate the entire thing from scratch, and had to downgrade tons of its features because of the limited hardware available. Features such as having ghosts actually stay on screen. Yes, it was that bad. But Atari, being Atari, ordered 12 million cartridges to be manufactured, far in excess of the 10 million console owners at the time. That makes sense, right? Oh no, wait, it doesn't. Still, the game sold well because everyone loved the little pellet muncher, and it even became the best-selling Atari 2600 game of all time. However, the returns and the complaints that came after mean that this is widely accepted to be the precursor to the video game crash of the 80s that E.T. fully kicked off. Oof! Number 4. Anthem. Anthem has been called a disappointment by its owners and a failure by players. There have been talks of Anthem making $100 million digitally since release, but given that EA wanted this to be their destiny, which generated $325 million of revenue in its first 5 days, might not be enough for them to consider this a success. The game released a month early for those that pre-ordered the title, but the problem soon became apparent that by the time this month had ended, people had seen and done all there was to, well, see and do in EA's franchise. Number 3. SPORE. There was almost monolithic hype when Maxis, the makers of The Sims, announced that they were making another God game, this time focusing on developing a civilization starting from a microscopic organism, which was all procedurally generated. I mean, how could this not be great? A game that shows you what it's like to go from sperm to wormholes in a single playthrough? Sign me up! Well, the problems began early on, and it took 8 years for the game to come to fruition, and so much changed that it hardly resembles the original pitch. The end result was a shockingly hollow and superficial game compared to what was initially promised, and all of those deep evolutionary sections basically boiled down to mini-games. Spore reviewed fairly well though, however sales stagnated 2 months after launch at around 2.8 million, after which support was faded out and a sequel was never commissioned. Now remember, this was meant to take the world by storm, to be as big, if not bigger, than The Sims. However, it seems to have been an evolutionary dead end for Maxis. Large oof. Number 2. Fallout 76. After spawning a parody-inducing level of Skyrim editions on different platforms, Bethesda finally decided that it was time to move back to Fallout the only way it knew how, by completely changing everything that fans had grown to love about the series. I kid, as the hype was very, very real for a fully multiplayer Fallout installment. Things were all set to be a surefire winner. However, what fans got was a game with virtually no story, a total absence of human NPCs, painfully janky, bug-filled gameplay courtesy of the underqualified creation engine, and a disconnected multiplayer experience. It was panned hard. The game received meta scores in the low 40s and early 50s, which is an embarrassingly low number for a AAA publisher as high caliber as Bethesda, severely denting its commercial performance. Now, if you want a real evaluation of its failure, just look at how quickly prices were slashed on the game as Bethesda desperately wanted to shift units. This is an oof of large proportions, slowed down by 50%. Yeah, that's pretty bad. And number 1, Too Human. Too Human was an epic action RPG from developers Silicon Knight, who hyped the game to unprecedented levels, detailing it to be the next big thing and was even going to be the start of a trilogy of games. Yet one need only have looked at the issues surrounding development to see that this was just going to turn out badly, as Too Human began life on the PS1 in 1999, then moved to the GameCube in 2000 and ended up being released on the Xbox 360. This game has been on more units than even your mum and carried with it a sizable urban legend style curse. Also, yes, that is my one per list. As delay followed delay, the budget ballooned to an estimated $80 million, and when it finally dropped, it sold just 700,000 units and met mediocre reviews. The plan for a trilogy was scrapped, and Silicon Knights was even sued into bankruptcy by Epic Games over an alleged illegal use of their Unreal 3 engine, the end result of which meant that all unsold copies of the game had to be destroyed. You can still buy copies online, but yeah, it was literally erased from existence in a legal sense. My friends, that is what you call the biggest oof slowed to 25%.